In this video, I will explain how to create panel projects in the new Studio, although you have been taught to work in the old version of the Studio. I'd like to clear away all doubts at once. All functions you saw in the old Studio are preserved in the new Studio, but they are moved to a different place. Now I'll show you step by step what moved where. To begin with, let's remember what it was like in the old Studio. When the old Studio was opened, we could see a menu bar on the top, then there was a toolbar. The Workspace was in the middle. On the right, you could see tabs for the device base and project device panel, and for a global cache cloud. On the left, you could see everything dealing with graphics, the Gallery tab, the tab with project navigation, and the Object Properties tab. When you open the new Studio, you can see the Welcome page, where you can open projects that you opened previously. You can also create a panel project and a server project. Let's create a new project. Everything is the same here. You are to select what panel, what device you want to create a project for. Now let's have a look at the new interface. Let's start with the Tools tab. If you remember the first lessons of the course, you start with organizing the workspace in a way it is convenient to you. Let's start with the Tools and Options. Here you can set if the log will be shown at the start of the emulator. Workspace is set here. Here you can select if item names will be shown or not, and if items will be shown in the project tree. So, names of buttons and other items can be displayed here in the tree. Backup is set here. The next is the Project Style tab. Here you can set the color of the start page. You can select the fonts that can be used on pages, pop-ups, items, labels. You can enter text that will appear by default on buttons that you will create. And here you can also select color for state 1 and state 2 of items. The last tab deals with a separator to create multi-state items. Let's have a look at the workspace. I'd like to draw your attention now to the location of open projects. In the old Studio, all open projects were located in the project overview on the left, and one was displayed above another. In the new Studio, open projects are displayed here on the top, one after another. All navigation in the workspace is now located at the bottom of the workspace. It includes scaling, grid, and display of item names. The standard menu bar with buttons to open a project, to save a project, and project relations is followed by the Project Settings button. In the old Studio, project settings were opened by default and you could access them via these two icons. It's the same in the new Studio. Here is an icon of project settings, here is an icon of project settings. Let's have a look at the settings themselves. Here you can change project resolution, select a type of project scaling on device. In the Start tab, you can see all settings dealing with project start on a panel. The next tab is Screensaver. You can select a portrait or a landscape screensaver. Here, I want to draw your attention to the fact that now you can start different scripts, for example, to decrease the brightness of the screen. In the Project tab, you can set required passwords and a password to edit a project in the Studio. Create executable file is the feature that was called in the old Studio Save Protect Project. Now it is located in Project Settings. In the Debug tab, you select the level of login, and the Info tab is meant to store information about your customer. Let's pass on to the workspace. On the left, you can see the project. Navigation is here. General settings are here and settings of states are here. So, General and States tabs are the same. But I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the Programming tab is no longer next to them. Programming in the new Studio is a separate tab. Other tabs are now located only on the right, and not on the right and left like in the old Studio. And the Programming tab is the third from the top. The driver tree is on the right, and driver properties are also on the right at the bottom. But the advantage of the new Studio is that you can move all the tabs and locate them where it is more convenient for you. For example, for me it's more convenient to locate the driver tree and the project on the left. As first I choose a page, then I pass on to the driver tree and drag and drop required commands and feedback channels on items of the page. Thus, I free some space on the right. As for programming, sometimes it is convenient to place it this way to see the full names of commands, and you do not have to stretch anything or double-click to see what macro you have inside. This flexibility of tab positions allows you to place them in a way that is maximally convenient to you. It was not available in the old Studio. Now let's pass on to items. As you remember, in the old Studio, when you created an item, you always created a button. In the new Studio, when you press Launch, you can select what item you want to create. If you want to create a trigger, you select a trigger button and draw it, and it is at once a trigger button, and not a button that will have to be edited. A new item appeared in the new Studio. It's a label. It's a one-state button with text. Its automatic settings are Hit, Path Through. Hotkeys appeared to draw items. If you want to make a label, hold L on the keyboard, and you can see an icon next to the cursor now. Draw an item like you usually do it, and the cursor becomes a regular cursor again. If you want to draw a button, hold B. If you draw a trigger, but you want a button, hold B, and you have a button. If you want to come back to drawing a trigger button, hold D, draw on the keyboard, and you draw a trigger button. If you want totally to come back to drawing buttons, press Ctrl D and the cursor does not change now. You can cancel everything with the help of Escape button. Let's sum up. You can create an item by selecting a required item on the left. You can click right mouse button, select Draw Item, and the last item you drew will be selected. If you by chance create a different type of item, not the one you wanted, you can change it here on the top and here on the left in the General tab. Now let's pass on to placing items in the interface. Items could be selected and aligned in a required way. In the old Studio, these tools were located on the top. Now they are to the left of the workspace. You can see here different alignment and spacing settings. And here is a setting to edit text location on an item. What else can be done to text? Here is another update. I select a button, click on the text, the square appears and I can move the text where I want. I can also edit text without entering settings. I double-click on the text and I can write a required text. One more new thing appeared. In the old Studio, you could select from right to left or from left to right, and all items that got inside the frame got selected. Now it is different. If you select from left to right, the selection will touch only those items that are totally inside the frame. Thus, you get more convenience. There is another new feature, Copy State Style. Now I'll change the style of a button. Click right mouse button and select Copy State Style. Then I pass on to another button, click right mouse button and select Paste State Style. And the color of the style is changed. Thus, you can once create, for example, a trigger in the required style and then clone it with all settings. Let's pass on to the color now. In the old studio, the color was set in the states. You could set the color itself, and there were two more settings: color alpha channel and opacity. In the new studio, these settings are located in the top right corner for every selected item on the workspace. Now I select the page and I can see the color of the page, the color of the border, and the opacity of the page. Now I select an item and I can see the color and the opacity of the item. Color alpha channel setting is located inside the color setting, and the border can also be set here in the top right corner. The color panel is smart. The colors you can see here include all colors used in a project. Thus, you'll never mix up colors and shades of colors that you use in your project. Now let's pass on to switching between states. In the old studio, you could see tabs with State 1 and State 2 in the States tab, and you could see tabs with different states at the top. Now the tabs with different states are located above the workspace. You can use them for any item on the page. If you want to correct all states, click the All States tab. This button is active for all items until you deactivate it. Let's move on to other settings. General setting of an item could be seen in the General tab of the old studio. In the new studio, you can see them in the General tab by pressing the gear icon and in the dynamic top panel. First goes the location of an item, then its width and height, angle, name, type, feedback, heat, password. And if you press the password, you get advanced into password settings, which is very convenient. And the last two properties are visible and active. I'd like to say a few words about the angle setting. It's a new setting and you can't find it in the General tab. This setting allows you to rotate an item. To correct all images, icons, chameleon images, go to the tab with a picture. In the General tab, the settings from the old studio are kept, and you can edit image settings on the top. You can add an image, delete an image, select a type of stretching and location of an image or an icon. The same can be done for an icon and a chameleon image. The next and last setting is text. You can select the font, its size, properties, write a required text. Inside this setting, you'll find char map to use font icons in a project. Here you can select the color, the alignment of the text, and word wrap. You can also set special effects and the colors of the special effects. And here is the setting called Show Value in Text. We moved here different templates. But if it is more convenient for you to work with the General tab, you can do all these settings in this tab. When you do not need this tab, you can hide it by clicking a button. So let's pass on to other changes. New button properties have appeared. Buttons now have a new setting of the heat property, Touch on Fill. This setting works with images. So, if I now place an image on a button, and the shape of the image is different from the shape of a button, or in my case any other shape but for a square, let it be a circle for example, presses will be processed only in the area of the circle. Thus, you can make a button of any shape determined by the shape of an image, and all presses outside the area of an image won't be processed. Remember to change the opacity of these areas. The setting of color alpha channel is here in the color setting. Trigger buttons now have a new property named send value. This setting determines when the trigger graphically changes into its second state. So, how to work with it? If you want a trigger command to be done by release, you do it here in the Programming tab below. And in Send Value settings, it becomes Send Value by Release. If you set a trigger command to be done by hold, here the Send Value changes into Send Value by Hold. But if you want the graphics and the real commands to differ from each other, you can do it with the help of Send Value setting. Major changes have been made in static lists. Now a static list shows pop-ups located in it. It's a bit unusual, but you'll get used to it. And you can access all pop-ups by a double click. All settings of a static list are located on the top, and new types of sticking have appeared in addition to the old ones. The first type is called columns. I launched the emulator to show what it looks like. As you see, the pop-ups are located in columns. And the most popular type of sticking is No. With the help of this setting, you can stop a static list where it is convenient for you. And to close a project in the new studio, I must click right mouse button on the project name and select Close Project. Another new thing is circular levels. In the old studio, circular levels could be done only with the help of script. Now it is a native tool, and any images you upload can be turned into beautiful circular sliders like these ones. These are one of our latest templates. Please have a look at the slider on the right. It's a multi-state circular slider. How does it differ from a slider on the left? This slider has only 3 states: filled, unfilled, and a slider is selected. And the slider on the right has a separate image for each state. It allows us to make a step-by-step slider with nothing between white and blue rectangles. And the slider itself here is transparent. Its size is 80 by 80 pixels. These are the main changes concerning work with items. Let's pass on to navigation. Navigation is located in the Project tab. Pop-up groups have moved. You can find them by pressing this arrow. Creating pages and pop-ups remain the same. Cloning and copying are the same. Convenient search appeared in all tabs, including the Drivers tab. A new thing appeared in pop-ups. Let's create a pop-up to show it. You can't set Show Effect for one pop-up in the General tab. Animation has moved to the bottom right corner. It's a tab with a star. So first you create animation and then select it to a pop-up you want. So you can create 2 animation templates to show and to hide a pop-up, and then add these templates to all pop-ups. It's very convenient. You do not have to create one and the same thing in different pop-ups. All other properties remain the same. Let's pass on to drivers. There is no more device tree. I mean, the tab that was called Device Base in the old studio does not exist anymore. To add a device, press this icon and select a driver in the list or use search. I'll select Modbus TCP as an example. The settings, commands, feedback channels and tokens are the same, but you can't see either system or project tokens here because they are now located in special tabs. Here is a tab for project tokens and here is a tab for system tokens. There is one new thing in this tab. In the old studio, when you assigned a token to an item, you could assign it only as a feedback channel. Now you can also select Add Action, and you can set a macro by press, for example, and you can select a required action, for example, to send a number, let it be 0, to this token. And in the programming, you can see that macro by press is set. In the old studio, we would have to open a macro panel, find their Send to Project token, then we would select a number, and then we would select it. Now it is done much simpler. To close macro panel or any other panel, press Escape. Now let's see what happened to other functions. JS tab moved next to Workspace tab, as in most cases when you work with a script, you do not look at the graphic part. But thanks to the fact that the JS window is now here, you can use drag and drop to work with both drivers and items, and you do not have to write them manually. Another new thing is a capability to use an external editor, and you can write a script in this editor for iRidium, so you can work in the editor you are used to. Let's move on to the gallery. In the old studio, there was one tab called Gallery, and it had 3 tabs: Graphics, Sounds, and Project Gallery. The first 2 tabs were the same for all projects, and the last tab contained resources of this very project. Now the gallery is presented with 4 tabs. One of them is Resources. Let's move it to have a better look. This tab stores images, sounds, and fonts of a project. And here is a button to delete unused resources. The next tab is Cameras. Here you can set cameras like in the old studio. You can select from preset cameras by clicking the arrow. The Images tab is general for all projects, and the Sound tab is also general for all projects. A new tab appeared here, it's ETS Import. This tab is of great interest to those who work with KNX. See a video about it on our YouTube channel. Documentation on the new studio can be found in our wiki i3 Pro section, iRidium Studio 2019.